Chapter 1: An Overview to Dark Psychology versus Normal Psychology. What is normal psychology? Normal psychology, otherwise called basic psychology, or simply psychology, is a study of the mind and behavior. Psychology, Greek, soul, Greek. Knowledge is a science that studies the behavior and mental processes of people and animals. The psyche is the highest form of the relationship of living beings with the objective world, expressed in their ability to realize their motives and act on the basis of information about him. Through the psyche, a person reflects the laws of the world. This is what psychology aims to understand. Thinking, memory, perception, imagination, sensation, emotions, feelings, inclinations, temperament. All these moments are studied by psychology. But the main question remains: what drives a person, his behavior in a particular situation? What processes does their inner world entail? The range of issues addressed by psychology is wide enough. So, in modern psychology, there are a large number of sections: general psychology, age-related psychology, social psychology, psychology of religion, pathophysiology, neuropsychology, family psychology, sports psychology, etc. Other sciences and branches of scientific knowledge, genetics, speech therapy, jurisprudence, anthropology, psychiatry, etc., penetrate into psychology. In order to live in harmony with himself and with the world around him, modern man needs to master the basics of psychology. Psychology operates with the following methods: 1. Introspection, observation of one's own mental processes, cognition of one's own life. 2. Observation, the study of certain characteristics of a process without active involvement in the process itself. 3. Experiment, an experimental study of a specific process. An experiment can be built on the modeling of activities in specially defined conditions, or can be carried out in conditions close to ordinary activities. 4. Development study, the study of certain characteristics of the same set of people, children, a tribe, etc., which are monitored for several years. As a science, psychology originated in the second half of the 19th century, having separated from philosophy and physiology. Psychology explores the mechanisms of the psyche, unconscious and conscious of man. A person turns to psychology in order to know himself and better understand his loved ones. Such knowledge is essential in seeing and realizing true motives of their actions. Psychology is also called the science of the soul, which at certain points in life begins to ask questions: who am I? Where am I? Why am I here? Why does a person need this knowledge and awareness? To stay on the road of life and not fall in one ditch, then in another, and having fallen, find the strength in yourself to rise and move on.
Interest in this field of knowledge is growing. By training the body, athletes necessarily come to psychological knowledge and expand it. Psychology is actively pouring into training and education, into business, into art. A man is not only a storehouse of certain knowledge and skills, but also a person with his own emotions, feelings, ideas about this world. Today, knowledge of psychology is indispensable either at work or at home. To sell yourself or a product, you need certain knowledge. In order to have well-being in the family and be able to resolve conflicts, knowledge of psychology is also necessary. Understanding the motives of people's behavior, learning to manage their emotions, being able to build relationships, being able to convey their thoughts to the interlocutor, and here psychological knowledge will come to the rescue. Psychology begins where a person appears, and knowing the basics of psychology, many mistakes in life can be avoided. Psychology is the ability to live. What is dark psychology? We define dark psychology as the art and science focusing on mind control and manipulation. Psychology, as a general term, aims at studying and understanding human behavior. It is focused on our thoughts, actions, and the way we interact with each other. Dark psychology, however, just focuses on the kinds of thoughts and actions that are predatory in nature. Dark psychology examines the tactics used by malicious people to motivate, persuade, manipulate, or coerce others into acting in ways that are beneficial to themselves and potentially detrimental to the other person. The best definition for dark psychology is that it is the study of a human status, in its connection to the people's psychological nature to prey upon other people. The entire humanity possesses a certain potential to victimize not only their fellow human beings, but also other living creatures, whereas other individuals who might want to sublime it or restrain this kind of tendency. There are also others who opt to act upon some of these impulses. What dark psychology seeks to achieve is to make one understand those perceptions, feelings, and thoughts that end up leading to the predatory behavior of human beings. Dark psychology assumes this type of production is done for a given purpose and contains certain goal-oriented and rational motivation nearly all the time. The remaining portion of this time is essentially the dangerous victimization of other people, with no purposive intent. In other words, we can perceive and define it by both religious doctrine and evolutionary science. The point of dark psychology, as a subject, is to try to understand those thoughts, feelings, and perceptions that cause people to behave in predatory ways towards each other. Experts in dark psychology work under the assumption that the vast majority of human predatory actions are purposeful. In other words, most individuals who prey on others 99.99% do it for specific reasons, while the remaining people 0.01% do it for no reason at all. The assumption is that when people do evil things, they have specific motivations, some of which may even be completely rational from their point of view. People do bad things with specific goals in mind and specific rationales for their actions, and only a tiny fraction of the population brutally victimizes others without a purpose. That can be reasonably explained by either evolutionary science or some form of religious dogma. You have heard many times that everyone has a dark side. All cultures and belief systems acknowledge this dark side to some extent. Our society refers to it as evil, while some cultures and religions have gone so far as to create mythical beings to whom they attribute that evil: the devil, Satan, demons, etc. Experts in dark psychology posit that there are some among us who commit the worst kinds of evil for purposes that are unknown. While most people may do evil things to gain power, money, retribution, or for sexual purposes, there are those who do evil things because that's just who they are. They commit acts of horror for absolutely no reason. In other words, their ends don't justify their means. They cause harm for its own sake. Dark psychology is rooted in four dark personality traits. These traits are narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and sadism. People with such traits tend to act in ways that are pointlessly harmful to others. The skills and methods of influencing others can be quite different. They can be used both for constructive purposes and for various frauds. The characteristics of those who manage to influence people. No matter what is the dark in the dark psychology name, people who successfully use dark psychology have understood fully all aspects of normal psychology. Thus, they understand themselves as well as others around them. They easily analyze others with the skill. They perceive the views, opinions, and other information from those whom they wish to influence. Such a skill can be developed independently, and you will learn all.
Certain stories of deception of citizens with the help of dark psychology, like those that were told at the beginning of the book, were perceived as exotic, and the victims of this deception were considered unlimited simpletons. The bulk of fraudulent exploits using dark psychology as a special state of the psyche was not associated at all. The victim of dark psychological influence simply could not find an explanation for what happened. As has been noted more than once, the specifics of dark psychology makes the active user process the client in a roundabout way. He does not give direct commands to do this or that, but encourages a person to do it as if he is acting on his own initiative. The person comments, asks, consults, and gets his way. Behind his behavior is a certain strategy. One of them is speculation. The phrase stands in such a way that some phenomenon, action, or object is presented in it as if it was actually accepted. For example, they ask you, "Will you pay in dollars or bitcoins?" The question is innocent, but you have not yet said that you intend to purchase this thing at all. The question assumes that you have already made such a decision, and it remains to solve the trifle, to pay in bitcoins or dollars, about which you begin to reflect. I suppose that what was read caused the reader an ironic smile, a primitive ploy, visible, as they say, with the naked eye. Do not rush to conclusions. Let me remind you that the seller has already adjusted to you and leads you. Your consciousness is no longer as critical as when reading these lines. This is the basis of analyzing people first, then thinking steps ahead of them, even about their own actions and reactions. The essence of this technique is as follows. The dark psychologist makes up the text of the suggestion, and then dissolves it in a story of neutral content. During the conversation, the user in some way selects the words of suggestion, and they turn out to be a brilliant trap for consciousness. He or she will change the volume of speech, pause in characteristic places, speed up or slow down the story. There are other tools for highlighting words and phrases in order to consolidate them in the subconscious. The user can emphasize the right places in the story with gestures, facial expressions, touching your arm, shoulder, back. He can approach you sharply, turn around, turn away, etc. All these manipulations, if you follow them, are the basis of dark psychology. Now let's think about how often this is done to us against our will, and how this new knowledge is about to turn your life around. But first, it is worth considering the various personality types you should get ready to come across. Understanding the dark triad and what it means, this is a very important concept because it is going to help tie together some of the other aspects that we have discussed dark psychology. The name dark triad may sound like something that comes from a horror movie. Boo.
The dark triad is nothing more than an identification system for the three most destructive and harmful psychological personality traits a person can have. This chapter will take some time to detail each of the traits, including narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Let's take a look at each part and see what it means when it comes to dark psychology. What is Machiavellianism? The first aspect of the dark triad that we will discuss is known as Machiavellianism. This aspect gets its name from the political philosopher known as Machiavelli. In his classical work, The Prince, the ideas, principles, and tactics that are used by those who seek to influence others are outlined. But how exactly does a Machiavellian person come across? The hallmarks of this trait include a willingness to focus on your self-interest all the time, an understanding of the importance of your image, the perception of appearance, and even the ruthless exercise of power and cruelty rather than using mercy or compassion. To keep it simple, people who have this trait are ones who always have a strategy when they approach life. The consequences and any ramifications about any action are going to be thought out and then assessed in terms of how they are going to impact the one who is carrying them out. The Machiavellian approach to the world is summed up with a simple question: how will this action benefit me, and how will my public perception be impacted as a result? Machiavellian people are going to be masters of doing what is going to personally serve them well, while still being able to maintain the good public image that they want. This allows the manipulator to do what they want, while still getting people around them to still like them. What is psychopathy? The net aspect that we can discuss is psychopathy. This is going to refer to a psychological condition that involves a superficial charm, impulsivity, and a lack of commonly held human emotions, such as remorse and empathy. Someone who exhibits enough of these traits can be known as a psychopath. These individuals are seen as some of the most dangerous people because they are able to hide their true intentions while still causing a lot of trouble. People often associate the word psychopath with an image of someone who is mad and wields a machete. The reality is different, and this can make it more deadly. A true psychopath is more likely to be that charming and handsome stranger who is able to win over their victim before they ruin those victims' lives in the process. Interestingly, some of the top people in business score high on psychopathy personality tests. But as time goes on, it is becoming more common to see psychopathy as more of a problem to the victim and to society rather than an issue in the psychopath's own life. Psychopaths are able to get to the top of anything
that they choose because they don't have to worry about some of the compassionate indecision that other humans are going to experience. What is narcissism? The third aspect of the dark triad that we need to explore is narcissism. This is often thought of as the idea that a person loves themselves too much. This is close but quite the right definition for someone who is a narcissist. You can have self-love without being considered a narcissist. Someone who is considered a narcissist is likely to have a range of traits that are there. They will have an excessively inflated self-worth, such as seeing that their life is extra special and one of the most important lives in all of history. If this has been inflated enough, they may see that they are the very most important in the whole world. In the mind of a narcissist, they are not only special, but they are superior to everyone else. They consider themselves to be a better species of person, higher than what normal people would be, and because a narcissist believes this way, their behaviors are going to change. The behavior that you see in a narcissist is going to reflect the self-worth that the person has. Some of the outward signs or manifestations of this aspect would include the inability of the person to accept any dissent or criticism of any kind. Even if they feel that someone is trying to criticize them, they are going to have a hard time dealing with this. This kind of person also feels the need to have others agree with them all the time, and they like to be flattered. If you are around someone who seems to always have a need for constant praise, recognition, and approval, and if they seem to organize their lives in order to give them constant access to those who will fill this need, then it is likely that you are dealing with someone who is a narcissist. These three aspects are going to come together to form the dark triad. When one person has all of these three traits in them, it can be a hard task to stay away and not get pulled into whatever plan they have. Being on the lookout for these can make a big difference in how much control you have in your own personal life.